One of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned was being okay with not having all the answers. I'll admit, there was a time I absolutely wanted to have all the answers. Many people know that expectation of having all the answers is simply a myth. And then there are some of us who think they just want to know everything. If you're like me and you have this inner drive to quote unquote have all the answers, and you find yourself really struggling and doubting your worth if you don't have all the answers, this episode is for you. Let's get started with looking at letting go of that need to have all the answers and how to stay confident when you don't have all the answers. Do you desperately want a blueprint for how to stop overthinking, procrastinating, and avoiding all the things that you need and want to do? Do you struggle with negative thinking and self-talk and wish that you could love the woman in the mirror? Are you ready to be the crazy confident version of you? If you're ready and willing, or even a tiny bit interested, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Crazy Confidence Coach podcast. My name is Heather Edwards, and I am your biggest fan. I want to help you live your most vibrant version of you. Each week, I'll share tips and tricks for shattering self-doubt, creating stronger mindset, and creating unwavering confidence. So grab your favorite notebook and your favorite covered pen, and let's get to it. I'm not really sure where it started, where I began thinking that I had to have all the answers or wanting to have all the answers, but it was definitely something in my young adult age, like college age maybe, that I remember having. And when that became part of who I was, it became very challenging to keep my confidence up. Because if you think about it, if you believe that you have to have all the answers, and if you don't have all the answers, there is some worthiness that is missing inside of you, then you are running uphill, because it is impossible to have all the answers. That is just the truth of all of it. And if you really consider who does have all the answers, there isn't a single person that I know of that has all the answers. So this is going to be a podcast about how we be more comfortable and stay confident even when we don't have the answers, and being good at not having the answers, which is kind of something I like to joke about, because if I'm good at not having the answers, that means that I have a skill or a plan for not having the answers. And that really is exactly what we'll talk about today. What is the plan? How do you stay confident even when you don't have the answers? First of all, I will say that you have to stay in a Curious George mode. If you don't know who Curious George is, just look it up. It's a cartoon. I grew up seeing Curious George, and it is not a lot of talking or anything. It's just this silly monkey who constantly is doing things that he isn't supposed to do by making mistakes or going after things no matter what the consequences are. And if you think about it, if you stay in Curious George mode, then you don't get upset when you make a mistake. You know it's okay, and you just keep doing it anyway. So just embrace not knowing the answers and have an attitude of constant growth. So that's what I mean when I say stay in Curious George mode, because Curious George was funny, he was silly, and he certainly just kept going. So keep going even when you don't have the answers, and stay in curious mode. The second thing I would say for you to do is to trust yourself. Trust yourself to find what you need to and when you need to find it. Don't lament, what if I can or what if I can't do something. You can get really caught up in your mind in loops of thoughts and thinking, but what if I can't do that? Or what if it doesn't go this way? Or what if? And to be honest with you, that really keeps you in a place of stuckness and not moving forward. So to keep moving forward, you need to trust yourself and know that you can handle not knowing, first of all, but also you can build trust in yourself by figuring things out when you don't know them and just learning more about them. It means nothing about your value if you don't know something. The only way it can mean something about your value is if you're not willing to actually figure it out when you don't know it. So just be willing to learn more when you need to, and be okay with not having the answer. Especially in today's society and time, you have resources, so many resources that you can tap into, and experts around the world that can help you figure something out if you don't know how to do them. So trust yourself. Trust yourself to figure out what you need and when you need it. The third thing is just be practical about your expectations. Nobody knows everything. Most people have general knowledge about general things, and they tend to be experts only in things that they study, that they work on, or they engage in as a hobby. So if you want to know more about something, spend time studying it, working with it, or engaging with it as a hobby. Don't expect yourself to know everything unless you're spending time with it and that energy and your focus is on it for learning it. I think sometimes we can just have these expectations of ourselves that we would never have of other people. So if you're in a meeting, or if you're talking to a spouse, or if you're talking to a friend and you don't know something, just be practical. There's no reason that you should feel shame about not knowing something. Be okay with not knowing. And the fourth thing kind of ties into this. Just have the courage and the mindset to admit it when you don't know something and be okay. Because if you will admit you don't know something and you just ask a quick question, something that happened this weekend, I was talking to a group of girls and somebody was talking about something, and another person that was listening said, "I don't know what you're talking about. What is that?" And she just answered the question and we all moved on. And she was pretty self-conscious about it. She's like, "I know that was a stupid question." And we all kind of simultaneously said, there's no stupid question. Just have the courage and the mindset to admit when you don't know something. It's okay. We're all here in this together. We're all trying to learn. And I'll tell you a little secret. If somebody's giving you trouble about not knowing something, it's probably because they don't know things and they beat themselves up for not knowing it. So accept yourself. Love yourself even when you don't know everything. And actually, I would say have the courage to love yourself because you don't know everything. Love yourself for honoring yourself and learning more every single day and being willing to step up and say, "I don't have the answer, but I'd like to know more." It's okay. You are always allowed to not have the answers. The last tip I'll talk about today is just being willing to go out and learn more when you recognize a gap in your knowledge. Gaps in knowledge do not equal no confidence or equal lack of value. If you can plan for not having value, and what I mean by that is plan to research when you have something that you want to know and you don't know it, or if you're asked something and you don't know, either ask or be willing to admit and go find out more. I'll give you a story. I actually was put in a position back years and years and years ago. I was with a company where the HR director was gone. She was having surgery and I was sitting in for her during this time frame. I was pulled into this emergency meeting with the VP, the CEO, and CFO about some things they wanted to do with employees. And they were pretty advanced situations. We were actually getting ready to do reduction in force, which I had no experience with at the time. And they asked a question during the conference call. I was sitting there face to face with the CFO, and the other two people in the meeting were actually on the phone in the conference room. And it was just the four of us. The president, who happened to not be there, asked a question, and I said, "I am very sorry. I don't know the answer to that, but I will do some research and get back to you." And we had to kind of close the meeting because I didn't have the answers they needed. So I went back to my office, and as I was sitting in the office, my CFO, who happened to be the one who was face to face with me, walks in and shuts the door and sits down. And my heart was racing because I was petrified. He was going to fire me or tell me I was crazy because I didn't answer the question, whatever it was. But he sat down and he told me how impressed he was with me because I didn't answer the question or try to answer the question, and that I was willing to say I didn't know the answer. That was very impactful for me. It was something that really changed the way I thought about not having the answers. And to be honest, it was probably a turning point for me because he was just nice enough to come tell me, "Hey, that impressed me. Thank you for being honest." And, of course, I left that meeting, then got the answer for them, and then went back to them and gave them the answers. But that's just a great example of wanting, of course, I wanted to have all the answers. I wanted to be looked at as an asset. And at that moment, I certainly didn't feel like an asset. that. But the CFO, he felt like I did the right thing and it all worked out. I gained a lot of respect of the C-suite during that meeting, and that proved to be very useful for me down the road. So just be willing to go out and learn more when you recognize you have a gap in your knowledge. During that meeting, I had to go outside of myself and figure out the questions or the answers to the questions that they had for me. And it was interesting because one, I learned something, but I was able to find the answer eventually, right? I didn't have to just end with not having the answer. I had confidence that was gained from that situation. So you will increase your confidence as you fill in the gaps when you need to. So filling in the gap of a lack of knowledge is simply educating yourself when you need to. Your confidence truly will soar. It kind of just reinforces your brain's belief in itself to solve problems and not be helpless. So then you end up trusting yourself that you can do it. Your ability to learn more when you don't have the knowledge becomes your security blanket, if you will. So there's no shortage of resources, y'all. None. There are so many places that you can go to fill in your knowledge gaps. There are resources with groups that you're involved in. There are resources that are online. I learned most recently that my library has lots of free digital resources, and I would assume that your library, your local library also does. And when I say resources, I mean online learning for languages, learning new languages for free, books to read, newspapers, classes you can take on businesses or computer work. Check your local library for your list, but in my library, they have a pamphlet when you walk in. And you can walk away with that little, I say pamphlet, it's just a piece of paper with a list of everything. So you could do that or go online and look it up. And then there's another free service that I've actually used this over the years from time to time called GFC Learning. And it's gfclearnfree.org. I'll put a link in the description notes. There's also edu.gcfglobal.org. And these sites have just classes for free. Anything from basic skills, communication, photography, using Excel, using Word. They have things on money, using PowerPoint, even something as simple as using Instagram. And of course, since you're here listening to a podcast, you can search podcast host sites for topics that you're interested in. I personally listen to tons of podcasts on SEO and engaging my listeners with better search engine optimization. So there are a plethora of places that you can find free resources. The other thing that you might do if you're a person who's just wanting to grow in your business, SCORE is a great organization to start with for business education. Then there's other places that you can go if you're women in business. Then you can go to, I think it's anyway, you understand what I'm saying. If you have a knowledge gap that you're trying to fill, there are endless resources for you. Do not allow your confidence to suffer because you don't have a skill that can be learned. A skill that can be learned is absolutely something that you just have to put a little time and energy into, and the rest will follow. So I hope you keep wanting to do the best you can do, of course. And I hope you keep wanting to engage in more knowledge and want to know the answers. By no means do you need to let your confidence suffer if you don't have the answers, because those answers can be obtained. And all you need is a plan to deal with it if you happen to not have the answer. I hope you go off and you enjoy learning something fun on one of those places. I hope that you keep increasing your confidence every single week. And I hope you come back here each week to do that. So have a great week, and I'll talk to you next Tuesday. Don't forget to check out hcedwardscoaching.com for freebies and scheduling your coaching sessions there. I do offer a free discovery call for first-time coaching clients. If you're interested in coaching and you aren't sure if it's something that you really want to do, that's what a discovery call is for. You can ask me all the questions you want, and I can hopefully get you all the questions you need to schedule coaching. It is a life-changing experience. There are freebies there too, so go grab your freebies, come back each week, and leave a rating or review. Thank you so much. Love you big.